You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Okay, we got one I'm really excited about here. lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. But let's start with a simple one. Hey, Ryan and Kyle, 37, work for a small company in the Midwest, 6 employees. I've worked there about a year and a half, and I'm by far the most recent hire. I'm decent at my job. I'm always afraid, like, how often are we all telling the truth? So if you're like, I'm decent at my job, does that mean you actually aren't? But you're saying you're decent at your job, so we'll take your word for it. Easy to get along with, good sense of humor, albeit dry, have a good working relationship with everyone in the office. My problem is that I'm a volume joke guy. I feel like I hit on about 30% of the jokes I tell around the office. At first, I was fine with a higher usage rate because I was feeling things out and expected my percentage to go up over time. Instead, I feel like the jokes that aren't landing are making it increasingly more difficult to relate to my coworkers, and I feel like they've started distancing from me. I've never been in this position before, and I'm not sure where to go from here. At this point, is it better to drastically cut my joke telling, or should I continue to refine it to get my stats up? Have you ever dealt with a volume joke guy? Any advice is appreciated. Wow. Not long, but a lot going on. So let's start with a couple of the obvious ones. If you're saying you feel like you hit on 30%, but you're noticing that employees are distancing themselves from you, that number's probably like 10%. All right? So if you're the one telling all the jokes and you think they're hitting and you're giving yourself a 30, it's lower, man. It's lower. And if you're self-aware enough, I mean, unless you're the most self-aware volume joke guy, but I would think if you're the most self-aware guy, you wouldn't be a volume joke guy, but now you're sort of both. But then I'm thinking, like, are you partially aware and you've noticed that people have just distanced themselves from you? You got a real problem here. And on top of that, you're in a Midwest city, LA, New York, Boston. I'd be really worried about you. But you're hitting only 30% in a Midwest city. Like, it's the same thing when people on the coast will see some of the network lineup shows where I'll go, who laughs at this shit? And you go, oh, the Midwest. So if they're not laughing at your jokes right now, and by the way, I love people from the Midwest. You know what I'm saying? I just think that there's, we'll just leave it at that. I just think there's certain levels of sitcoms over the years where I've gone, wow, who's this for? So, I'm worried about you big time. I am, because this isn't baseball where 30% is Hall of Fame. This is low. It's really low. I would almost apologize. I would make the joke on you and go, hey, look, I've been volume joke guy. Just call yourself out. I need to tighten that up. Maybe people will get a kick out of that. Some real humble, not Instagram humble. I don't know. Don't send a memo out, or maybe just rehearse some of this stuff a little bit better. You know, do you have anybody you could bounce your material off of? Because this is bad. Because the bad joke guy, it sucks because nobody knows what to do. We had a guy, and look, I don't really like him to begin with, but we had a guy who would come into the studio and he would, no matter what, there was always a joke. It was always a comment. It was always something. And so you'd be sitting there with your staff, or you'd be sitting around doing your thing, and this guy would come in and he'd open it up and he'd be like, oh, is that the shirt you're wearing? And in the beginning, you're like, okay. I'd be like, hey, you know, last shirt. And I'll admit too, like, I had a weird phase post-college where all I could think of was an insult. As soon as somebody said something, the only thing I could think of was an insult. And finally I had to be like, hey, you're not a dick. You're not a bully. Like, why are you doing this? It's like, oh, that's because that's all we did was insult each other for like 4 years. And then a couple years after that, like, it was just a massive insult fest. So you had to learn how to be quick enough to insult the other guys so that you could just keep up. And then when you sort of kind of move out of that phase where, you know, it wouldn't be fun to just be insulting people all the time or having somebody insult you, you're like, hey, stop doing this. But my mind was wired to immediately think of an insult all the time because it was just, again, iron sharpening iron. I just love saying that. I love saying man sharpen man because I saw it at a football facility once and I thought it was like the funniest thing I've ever seen. So you have to figure out a way to like self-edit. you have to figure out. So as soon as that joke pops up into your head, you got to go, okay, is this a really good one or not? And I don't know if you're capable of that because you're 37 and you're writing this email. So I'm really worried. Like, I'm legit worried about this. And like I said, back to that story, we had this guy, he would come in, and in the beginning, you're like, okay, you made a bad joke. You made a dumb observation. That was his sort of odd, like, ice-breaking way. And then it just became insufferable. Like, nobody could do anything with it anymore. So the guy would come in and he would say his thing. He'd be like, oh, blah, 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 and you just be like, and then I would stare and I would look, and he would be like, okay, Ryan. And I go, okay, are we done? I'm like, all right, now can we start the conversation? Because that's how I was that sick of it. And at that point, I could kind of just be like, look, you feel this way about me. I feel this way about you. We're not kidding each other here. We both know we don't like each other. So, all right, cool. And it was just unbelievably awkward because everybody was uncomfortable around it all the time. Like, people in the office, everybody like, oh, so-and-so came in and he just would, he makes these jokes and they're never funny. And it's just this weird observation. And I think it's almost like a weird, insecure, hey, I'm being one of the guys thing. So you didn't take it. It wasn't like nasty. It wasn't, but it just made everybody awkward. And then everybody starts talking about you. So the problem with this is probably everybody is talking about you. So I hope this helps you feel better about your day at work. No, you there for me, bud?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
yeah, I'm there. I just kept thinking of the Seinfeld episode with Kramer's girlfriend who's heckling Jerry. Before she heckles him, she just like makes and laughs at her own terrible jokes, and it's not even a joke. It's like observations, like you said. Like, she doesn't even come up with one in the chamber. She just like, oh, I'm so excited, all that stuff. You know what the episode I'm talking about?
She ruins his whole set, and Jerry gets all mad. God, I haven't watched that show in a while. Let me start swing back on it. All right. Okay, this is a 3, 2, and 1. Okay, this is a big one. This is a big email for us. All right, let's go here. Ryan, moved to LA a year ago to pursue screenwriting. I went to college in an unrelated field, but a script I wrote at a school got some interest by agencies in LA. And since writing was my passion, I figured it was best to make the move to LA. Not a big move, just from San Diego to LA. When I graduated, I moved into an Airstream with no power and no water in the valley at a friend's house. This guy's a real troubadour over here. Kyle, would you ever want to live in an Airstream?
No, I can confidently say no.
Okay.
Absolutely
all right.
not.
Our guy's just like, he's writing. So he's in the valley. He's like, you'd be surprised how cold it gets in the valley at night. Trust me, I was. I wouldn't be at all. They leave that out of the California part of it, but when it does actually get cold at night here. And people want to act like it's Tijuana on the East Coast. You're like, oh, what is it, like 80? Like, no, it's like 51. What are you talking about? I know it gets even colder out there. All right. A couple months go by. I take a couple meetings with agents and producers, but then all of a sudden, all the people who wanted to work with me are nowhere to be found. No way. Welcome to screenwriting. All right. Around the same time I meet this girl, we hit it off. She's amazing. She's got a nice place down in San Diego where I went to college. So I'm down there writing by the beach all the time. Life's decent. Living situation improved. But the work stuff was hitting a wall. Then COVID hits and our lease runs out. We can't really go back and stay at my trailer. So she says, why don't we go stay at my brother's? Her brother is none other than a world famous musician making 8 figures a year. I can't say the name of the musician, but just trying to paint the picture. We lived there for about 5 months. And by the way, I was able to figure out, I think, who it was, and this guy is very serious. Like, he's not exaggerating. Okay, this is very serious. So our emailer says he lives there about 5 minutes with the sister. The whole time I'm writing, living in this sick house. It's great. He's asking me about my work. I'm asking him about his. We're homies. He would always tell me he didn't really know people in the film industry, but that he would always try and help with my scripts. Unlike my dad, who, when I told him whose house I was living in, he said I should ask for a job. I would never cross that line and ask for something like that. But when he offered to help with my scripts, I filed it away. A couple months go by after we lived there, and I have my own apartment now. I have a new script trending, but again, everyone takes a meeting, then nothing. Again, welcome to screenwriting. Like anyone, after things like this in subjective industries, start to doubt yourself. Just dead end after dead end. I'm really down on my luck. Then one night we go to his house for a small party. At the end of the night, we're all drunk, and he starts telling me about his new short film he's making, how amazing it is because he's making it with real all caps writers, and how I wouldn't understand because I'm not a real writer. Oof. Keep in mind, this is the guy who said he didn't know any of the writers or people like that. He's borderline blacked out, so I brushed it off, but it hurt. And my girlfriend could tell it hurt. She knew the situation. She said he does it to her all the time. She's also unemployed right now and in marketing, but he'll talk about marketing positions on his team all the time in front of her. She says she has so many people who do things for him that he doesn't think about these things. By no means do I feel entitled to his help or anyone's help. I'm a hard worker and I'm willing to put in the time to get where I want to be. I know my place in the pecking order of the industry right now. Hell, I'm 23. I know I still have a lot more of my dues to pay. But going back to what he said, it wasn't the fact that I didn't get the job to work on the short film. I just wanted to sit in the room and get coffee for the writers, do bitch work. I want to work. It's just so fucking defeating to be passed over so many times for people who say they want to help you. And then when it comes, they ghost you, especially in an industry where it's a business in which people have to help you break in. You can't just make a script and then have a movie. So I'm writing to ask, since I know you talk about your grind to get where you are, do you have any advice for someone trying to get in the industry like this or anything for any kind of peace of mind? This is not unique, unfortunately. And I know that, look, I'll get a lot of emails through the Kyle machine here, and a lot of you guys are asking me about help. I can't help you. And I know this is not what this email is. It's hard for me, man. I've moved out here a couple years ago. I've had meetings where I went, oh my God, I'm going to do something with this person. Or this guy just gave me the best feedback ever on my script. And this was the best meeting I've ever had. I had one meeting at a place where it was scheduled for 30 minutes. We were there 2.5 hours. We were making plans for that weekend. And we had all these mutual friends. And he was saying, like, I can't wait to read this or this. And he's like, that's incredible. I've never heard from that guy again. It's been 2 years. Okay. Never heard from him again. I've had meetings at every place you would ever want to have. And all of them, except for like one, went incredible, where you leave and you go back to your car and you're driving back down the coast. You're like, I'm really doing it. I'm really doing it. And you never hear from that person ever again. I think that's what the industry, I think the industry, as I've learned, is that like, you never want to close the door on anyone. So you let them think there's always a possibility, so that if it ever comes back around and it's like, oh, wow, this person was really interested in me, or I always believed in you, or I told you I always liked your script, or, you know, I always knew we'd work on something down the road. That's what I've learned about the industry, is that that's just how it works. It's ridiculous, but that's how it goes. And as far as like getting something made, if you're not already a guy, you know, a real person with a big time production deal and in a history of stuff, and when you factor in like the movies that are and aren't being made, and then some of the stuff that you're going to have to pull off to even get a TV show made, it's really hard. Now, let's go back to your specific situation. So you can't, first of all, you can't feel bad. You're 23 and meetings aren't going better, or people aren't following up. That's not unique to you. So you can't get down on yourself. You can't use that to be bummed out like nobody's following up with you. People aren't following up with people all over the place. And you factor in COVID and everything else. And a lot of places don't want to buy something because it's like, wait a minute, I already bought all these other things that I haven't been able to make for a year. And now I'm going to buy more stuff. And I don't know when I'm going to be able to make it. So the timing is actually pretty terrible too. So we got all that out of the way. I can tell you this, and I think I say this with a great, as we were talking about self-awareness before, with a great sense of self-awareness. Whatever my level of I don't even want to call it famous, but whatever the level of this is, and being on ESPN a bunch of years and having a podcast, like I think I have a good perspective of what it's like to be really famous, because I'm around the people that are really famous and know that I'm not that. All right. But what I've always noticed about some of the people that are really, really fucking killing it, and whether it's an actor or a musician, is that they've had to be so single-minded to get to this point that they can become incredibly selfish in a way they don't even realize they're being selfish. Like, this feels a little selfish, but this guy, this musician, I don't even know that he realizes that he's basically bumming you out like this. And it's weird. You're dating his sister. You don't know if you're going to be part of the family. It's been, 6 months or something like that. And I'm with you. Like, I have people that I could probably ask for bigger favors, but I don't really want to. There's a couple people I've had stuff read that are big deals, and it's great when I get amazing feedback on it. But then I just kind of go like, all right, fine, they read it. They gave me all this great feedback. Maybe it's true, but that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. There's other people that I'll notice where I'm like, oh, I'm getting an eye roll from this guy. Like, this guy doesn't think I'm ever going to get anything done because this is really hard. And I can already sense like this guy has no poker face and he's just going to like doubt me the whole time. And so fuck you. Let's go. Right. I don't even think any of that stuff is happening here. I think what we're talking about here is a musician that is a big deal, who is in his own world so much that he doesn't even understand that he's bumming you out. So it's actually, I know this sounds messed up, but his selfishness makes this better because none of it's malicious. Now, when he said real writers, did he say that as like a dig on you? Or was he just drunk, like getting real creative? Like people will be up late at night, be like, no, but then we're going to shoot it with like real people, you know? So I don't know if that's, you took it personally. I don't even know that he would have meant that. So it sounds weird to want to give a pass to a guy making 8 figures a year, but you have to, one, understand that the times where he's selfish and the times it's all about him is that at this point of his life, literally everything is about him. Every time he gets off a plane, every time he shows up to a venue, every time he interacts with anyone, it's always about him. He is now the center of attention forever, for as long as he's still successful. And that can make you weird in a way that you don't understand how much you're detached from the reality around you. And I think that's all that's really happening here. So I don't think it's nasty, but would it be the worst thing for you to just go, hey, look, or maybe you talk to the sister. I mean, the fact that he doesn't want to put his sister on a marketing gig, I don't know. Some guys are weird about, and it's not nepotism, but the family part of this. I mean, look, I've tried to get my brother a couple gigs here and there. I haven't been able to get him a job. You know, he's 30. He's a great music producer. He's DJ'd. I mean, he's not just playing other people's music. He's put together great music. I mean, he's the same deal. He has all these meetings. They don't go anywhere. I've tried to find him some jobs, but I don't know how much I want to push it because then I don't want people to think that my brother only got a job because of me. And it certainly wouldn't be an on-air thing or something like that. So you could, if the sister says, hey, this is kind of his deal. Again, too, you're living there, so maybe he is a total asshole, and I don't know that, but you didn't say any of that stuff before. It's this one part where, like, did you want him to pick you as an unproven writer to write this? You're already saying no, that you just want to be around it. Like, what's the harm in you just saying, hey, you know what I want to do? We've gotten along. I'm not even asking to write or anything like that. I don't have any credits, but can I just be around it? Because that'd be a really weird thing for him to say no to. And if he says no, then you know where you stand. And if he says yes, then guess what? Like, things change. And now you're going to start connecting with people that are actually pulling this stuff off and you don't know. So, you know, I don't think you should be this pissed about it, even though I understand why. But you can't just stay pissed without ever asking him, even if you feel like, hey, I shouldn't do this. You're not asking him for a job. All right. And dads can be weird like that. My dad's still sometimes like, how come you can't get your brother a job? I can't just show up and go, hey, make this guy your music producer. He's my brother. Thank you. And subscribe. It doesn't, you know, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be pushy like that. But there is a part of this where I think there's a really soft, you know, intro into the conversation where you could just say, hey, man, you know, like, just while I'm around, if you guys are going to do any of this stuff, I'll go get coffee. I mean, who's going to say no to you? And as a young age, you're not as threatening. So it sounds like you all get along enough other than that blip. You know, if you're sitting there saying, I will do all the shit no one else wants to do just to be around it, I don't know that many people would ever say no to that kind of thing. So I think you kind of need to do that and ask in a very non, you know, parasitic way.
Yeah, because like you're thinking about this all the time, but he's only ever thinking about it when you bring it up, which sounds like it's never. So, right?
Yeah, right. Like, I think it's cool the emailer here is like, hey, I don't want to be that guy. Well, that's great. And I think it's something you want to, but for this industry, sometimes you kind of have to be that guy a little bit. Look, I did it a couple times with big time movie producers where I was like, hey, look, I know we have kind of just like a sort of a casual friendly relationship, but hey, you know, would you ever want to read anything? And then one guy was like, holy shit, really? He's like, I didn't know that's what you were doing. I was like, okay, thanks for listening to the podcast. And I sent it to him, and it was unbelievable that a guy like hit me up and was like, holy shit, this is amazing. He's like, I thought you were kind of like just one of those full of shit guys that moved out here and said he was going to write. He's like, you actually did this. I'm like, yeah. And guess what? Then you just sort of wait. So none of it goes according to your plan, you know, because you got to wait on so many other people. And, you know, if you keep grinding, it's almost like our volume joke guy, you know, you don't want to be a volume joke guy, but if you have enough lines out there eventually and you just keep at it, unless your writing completely sucks and you're just terrible at it, then maybe you pivot to something else. But you're 23. You can't get discouraged about it because your experience is not all that different from people that are a lot older than you trying to do it. That'll do it for the podcast. This is a fun one today. Make sure you check us out on Friday. Teddy Bruschi, Aaron Donald, as we'll get you ready for the Super Bowl. So we'll keep grinding here. Ringer, Spotify, please subscribe. Ryen Russillo Podcast.